Hello friends, and welcome to today's video, which is going to be part 2 of my History of SHINee series. If you don't know my History of series, I just take a K-pop group that I really like and I talk about their entire history. It's inspired by Smokey Glow's Evolution of series. I will have her playlist for Evolution of and just her channel in general linked in the description. But for SHINee specifically, I'm doing it as a 3-part series because their career is so long. So part 1, which came out at some point in the past, had 2008 to 2013. This is part 2. We're doing 2014 to 2017, and then part 3, which will be out at some point in the future, we'll have 2018 on. Before I go any further, I'm giving big, bold warnings. We are going to be talking about Jonghyun in this video, specifically his death later on towards the end. I will give you another heads up, but right here I'm giving you a warning. There will be mentions of suicide and depression. I'm also going to give you a brief warning that there will be mentions of SA in this video. I will again give you a heads up before we get to that, but if I will have timestamps also that you can skip to, but you have now been warned those will be topics of discussion in this video. If that is too much for you, you can totally skip it. You do not have to watch this video if it is not something you are up to doing. Quick little note before we go any further though, I'm not mentioning every group or solo activity SHINee's done. I know I said this in part 1, but on the off chance you didn't watch it, first of all, maybe you should. It will be in the description if you want to, but like maybe you should just for context, but you don't have to. Either way though, I will not be mentioning every group or solo activity in this video. That would take forever to get through. I don't have the time or the phone storage for that, so it's not going to happen. 2014 is going to be a lot tamer than 2013, so hooray for that. Downside though, there were no comebacks in Korea for SHINee as a group in 2014, so boo for that. Either way though, the year starts off with Jinki taking part in the latest round of the Law of the Jungle series. If you don't know what that is, please just envision Survivor, but a very clapped version of it, and it featuring K-pop idols instead of like whoever goes on Survivor these days. Okay, that's what the show is. Just, you can envision that. Great. Then in February, Jonghyun would take part in the SM The Ballad comeback as the only original member to be featured in this album. They would have a brand new lineup of a bunch of different artists, which personally I find very interesting, but we're only focusing on Jonghyun, so we're ignoring all of them for now. Jonghyun would sing 2 songs off of this album, the first one being the title track Breath, which would be a duet between him and Taeyeon, and the second one being a duet between him and EXO member Chen, entitled A Day Without You, which, for the record, is one of my all-time favorite duets ever in the history of music. That being said, I am a Jongdae stan. I am biased. While we're on the topic of me being biased, it is Too Hard time. If you don't know, Too Hard is a duo made up of Infinite member Uhyun and Key. They debuted in March with their first mini album, which was led by the iconic anthem that is Delicious. This song is an absolute banger, and it did relatively well. It peaked at number 9 on the Gaon charts, and the album sold roughly 75,000 copies. However, SM is a little bitch, and we have not had a comeback since 2014, and I, for one, am very bitter about it. Also in March, following Too Hard promotions, SHINee would kick off their 3rd SHINee World Tour, SHINee World 3, which was a world tour. That sentence was low-key confusing for me to get through, but I did it. Hooray for me. I will also say, I had a concert DVD phase. I know this is irrelevant, but trust me, we get there. I had a concert DVD phase. My friend and I would just watch concert DVDs. SHINee World 3 is the best one you will ever witness. It starts with them shooting into the air. I cannot oversell it. Just watch this concert DVD. If you have like 2 to 3 hours to kill, you will not be disappointed. Anyway, the tour would start with 2 shows in Seoul in March, like I said, and it would run until June. In April, Key would become the 2nd SHINee member to take part in the We Got Married franchise. He would be in their global edition version of the show and was partnered with Arisa Yagi. I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I am so sorry. But she is a Japanese actress and model. Following the end of their SHINee World 3 tour, SHINee would release their 10th Japanese single, Lucky Star. This song took on a brighter poppy sound, and unsurprisingly, I loved it because I love the majority of SHINee titles. In July, Jonghyun starts hosting the MBC radio show Blue Night. While there were some guest hosts here and there, Jonghyun would be the primary host for the show up until 2017. Then, in August, Taemin would become the first SHINee member to make their solo debut when he released his solo debut mini-album, Ace. This album was very successful. It spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the Gaon charts, sold over 80,000 copies just in 2014, and holds the very impressive distinction of being the highest selling album by a solo artist in all of 2014. The album was led with the single Danger, which is an absolute masterpiece of a song. I personally lost my entire mind when I saw it live, but it is a lot darker than your average SHINee song. It very much took on a very different sound in a lot of ways, and it did help Taemin distinguish himself between just being a SHINee member and also being a full-fledged solo artist. In September, SHINee would release their third Japanese studio album, I'm Your Boy. This marked their first #1 album on the weekly charts in Japan. It was a very successful release, and following it, SHINee would embark on their next Japanese tour, which would notably include their first shows at the Tokyo Dome, but we will get to her in a little bit. However, the tour was very, very successful with over 280,000 tickets sold. SHINee would spend pretty much the rest of 2014 out on tour, so it is time for our 2014 retrospective. If you don't know, for these types of videos, I like to end every year in a little bit of a retrospective moment. That's what this is. This is the one for 2014. The key thing for 2014, if you look at the history of SHINee, is the full steam ahead view of solo activities. 2014, SHINee did not have a single comeback in Korea, and even in Japan, they had a lot less than they normally did. Their real focus this year was for their solos. You had Key doing Too Hard, you had Jonghyun and SM The Ballad and hosting his radio show, you had Taemin's solo debut. It was very much clear that while SHINee wouldn't disappear completely as a group, a lot more of the focus was going to be put on member solo activities from this point forward. On to 2015 we go, and that is actually the year that I got into SHINee. We kick off the year very, very early with the release of Deja Vu by Jonghyun featuring Zion T. This is the pre-release for his solo debut mini-album. The single would come out on January 7th, with the rest of the album coming out on the 12th. In spite of being a pre-release single, though, Deja Vu was clearly the lead single off the album in terms of successes. It debuted at #1 on the Gaon charts. It had 8 music show wins. It is currently the most awarded song on music shows by a male solo artist from SM, and was all around very successful. And similarly, the album was unique in one key way, which is that it featured a lot of different artists on it that were not from SM Entertainment. At the time, SM soloists, while there were collaborations here and there, it was very primarily with other SM artists. Like Henry had songs with Amber, Taemin, and Kyuhyun, that type of thing. It was very rare to see SM artists at the time collaborating with artists who were not under SM Entertainment. And that is something that Jonghyun had in multiple songs on this album, which was very unique at the time. Jonghyun would also produce and write every single song on this album and is the sole lyricist for the vast majority of them. SHINee as a group, however, would not return until March, when they released their 11th Japanese single, Your Number. This song is a lot more chill, a lot more toned down, but was also very successful. It sold over 130,000 copies and is, I believe, their highest selling single in Japan even to this day. Along with the new release, SHINee would also return to Japan for a little encore moment for their previous tour from last year, with 2 shows at the Tokyo Dome. See, I told you we'd get back to that. Both shows sold out, with over 100,000 tickets being sold for just the 2 days. Also in March, Key would start hosting M Countdown. He would have a variety of different co-hosts over the years, but he would be one of the main hosts of the show, even hosting it as an individual at the end, and would be hosting it until 2017. SHINee would then kick off their SHINee World 4 tour with 3 shows in Seoul that May. The tour would officially run until October, however, it would only really contain 3 additional shows in Asia. Then, the day after their final Seoul concert, SHINee would make their long-awaited return to Korea, in the music sphere at least, with their 4th full album, Odd. I will not bore you with a very, very long rant about my feelings about both Odd, the album, and its title track, View. I will simply say this. I love SHINee's music with all my heart and soul. Odd is my favorite SHINee album, View is my favorite SHINee title. I shall leave it at that. Both the song and the album were wildly successful, however, with View marking SHINee's 4th #1 song on the Gaon charts and picking up 9 music show wins, as well as Odd spending multiple weeks at #1 and being the 6th highest selling album of 2015, with only EXO and BTS beating them out in terms of album sales. SHINee would then release Married to the Music, which is a repackage of their Odd album, in August. This album contained 4 new songs, including the titular Married to the Music, and while it did not do as well as Odd or View, it did still do quite well. It topped the charts, and Married to the Music is a pop masterpiece. It is giving funk and disco and everything you could want in a song. On September 17th, Jonghyun would release his first compilation album, Story Op 1. This album, it did not do quite as well as his solo debut album had. It was more or less forgotten about for the most part, and just didn't see the same levels of hype and success. Then, in October, Jonghyun would become the first SHINee member to hold a solo concert when he kicked off an SM concert series entitled The Story. The concert saw him performing songs off of Story Op 1 as well as his solo debut album, and he also performed some songs that he had written for other artists like EXO's Playboy. The concert also had a bunch of guests come to it during its runtime. I will not bore you with the entire list of it, but the more notable ones would include SHINee members Taemin and Jinki, as well as solo artists Zion T and IU. A week after Jonghyun's final concert, SHINee would release their latest Japanese single, Sing Your Song. This song, it's a lot cuter, but in my opinion, it's on the weaker side for SHINee's Japanese titles. Like, it's not a bad song, it's pretty good, it's just not on the same level as the last few had been. SHINee's final group promotion that we're going to be talking about would be in December when they would release the single, technically DDD, I always call it Dance Dance Dance, but it is the lead single of their upcoming fourth Japanese album, and then also in December, Jonghyun would post a little epilogue moment to his concert series, which would end on December 13th. Retrospective time. So 2015, I would say, is a hybrid in a lot of ways of 2013 and 2014. 2013 was pretty much sole group promotions all the way. 2014 only really solo promotions all the way. So 2015, you had a lot of solo promotions, you had a lot of group promotions. The only other real difference I would point out for 2015 is that they didn't do as much as Japan as they normally did. It was the first year since 2012 they did not have a Japanese tour. However, it's not like they weren't doing anything in Japan. It's been 7 years. A lot of the SHINee things are going to get a little bit more basic from this point forward, but I'm still doing my retrospectives and you're still going to have to sit through it. Moving on, SHINee would start 2016 off very early with the release of their fourth Japanese album on January 1st. In promotion of the album, they would also launch another Japanese tour, which was by far their largest to date, selling over 350,000 tickets and ending with another set of shows at the Tokyo Dome. SHINee would have a little pause in their Japanese tour, however, in February when Taemin would release his first solo full album, Press It, sitting right here. It was led by the single Press Your Number, however, it would have a pre-release single, Drip Drop, that would come out the day before the rest of the album. The lead single, Press Your Number, fun fact on the off chance you didn't know, was actually written by Bruno Mars. The album also contains the first song solely written by Taemin, which was Soldier, a heart-shattering ballad that I have cried my eyes out to more times than I can count. It would also be around this time that Jinki appeared in the drama Descendants of the Sun. I have skipped the majority of all of the members' acting stuff, more or less, just because I think it's tedious more than anything else, but I am pointing this one out because this drama was unbelievably popular, and also Jinki did go on to win some awards for his acting in it, so it does get a special mention. On March 18th, just before resuming their tour, SHINee would release their next Japanese single, Kimi no Sede. Fun fact, this is my favorite Japanese single by SHINee. If you are only going to listen to one of them, it should be this one. You should listen to all of them, but if you are only going to do one, highly recommend this one. Also on that same day, Jonghyun would release a single for the ongoing SM Station project entitled Your Voice. In May, Jonghyun would become the second SHINee member to release a full solo album with the release of She Is. The album spanned a ton of different genres, but was led by a title track, She Is. And fun fact, something that I did not know before researching this video, this song was actually composed by Crush. That same month, Minna would make his film debut with the movie Canola. I have not seen it, I cannot tell you what it's about, but I can tell you Minna was in it, so if that is very important to you, you now know that fact. Jumping ahead, Taemin would become the first SHINee member to debut as a soloist in Japan with the release of Sayonara Hitori. This album, led by a single of the same name, is beautiful, ethereal. Like, you don't even know. You're not, like, if you haven't heard it, you do not know how pretty this song is. You should high-key go listen to it. In July, Taemin would also appear on the dance show Hit the Stage, where he would perform Sayonara Hitori. He would, unsurprisingly, win, since he is the best dancer ever, and do a performance that still has me shaking to this very day. Also, true story, I went to see SHINee back in 2017. My friend and I had the aisle, right? She's a lot shorter than me, so I was like, you take the aisle, I just want it for Taemin's solo stage. So she was like, cool. Fast forwarding to the concert, I heard the start of this song playing. I literally flung her aside. I'm pretty sure her feet left the floor. I was like, move. It was, we'd still joke about it. She's fine. She was not harmed in this experience. We do still joke about it though. It'd be like, remember when I literally flung you aside for Taemin? And she's like, yeah, I do. Anyway, back to not present day, but present day in terms of this timeline at least. Taemin would also release a Korean version of the song and do a little bit of promotions for it. That August, Jinki would release an SM Station duet with singer Lee Jin-ah titled Starry Night. This song is so pretty. I actually forgot how pretty this song is because I haven't heard it in so long, but it makes great background noise if you are hypothetically, say, writing a 10,000 word script about the history of SHINee. In September, SHINee would kick off their SHINee World 5 tour, another world tour, and is also the tour that I went to, where I got this lovely banner right here that's been behind me this whole time. I went to it. It was a life-changing experience. Around the same time, Key would also become the latest SHINee member to make their acting debut in the drama Drinking Solo. I have never seen it once again, but Key is in it if that matters to you. Then, in October, SHINee would release their 5th full album, One of One, which is, fun fact, the only SHINee Korean release that I do not have a copy of going all the way back to 2013, because SM just stopped selling it and I can't find it anywhere that is a reasonable price that I would be willing to pay for this album, so I don't have it. The album was very quickly followed by a repackage that November, One and One. It had 5 new songs, including the title track, Tell Me What to Do, which would mark SHINee's first Korean title to be a ballad. It is also one of my favorite SHINee titles, if you were wondering. Jonghyun would then host his 2nd solo concert in December entitled Inspiration X in Seoul and Busan, as well as releasing another SM Station song for the concert entitled Inspiration. Closing out the year, we have SHINee's 14th Japanese single, Winter Wonderland. If you are guessing what this song is going to sound like, you're probably right. It's a very soft, ballady, wintry song. Personally, again, I love it, but I am going to say it might not be for everyone. That is all I have for 2016, so it is technically retrospective time. I do not have a ton to say that wouldn't have been true for 2015, beyond the fact that they played around a bit with the sound of their titles. We have a retro title and a ballad title, and the fact that Taemin got a lot of SHINee's Japanese popularity kind of transferred to him, but he is also a SHINee member, so it's not like it was out of the blue for him to also be popular in Japan, but beyond that, it was pretty standard of a year for SHINee at this point. Before I go any further into 2017, I'm going to give you another round of warnings for discussions of SA, suicide, and depression in 2 separate instances. I will give you more warnings when we get there. I will give you timestamps when we get there. I am going to give you another heads up right now, though, just in case. With that out of the way, our first SHINee promotion that I want to discuss is their next Japanese tour. This tour would run until April, however, there would be some encore concerts that we will get to at a later point. The tour was to promote SHINee's upcoming, at the time, 5th Japanese studio album, beautifully titled 5, and included the iconic title track, Get the Treasure. Quick note that Jonghyun would stop hosting his Blue Night radio show in March and Key would stop hosting M Countdown in April, both simply because they were about to kick off the North American leg of their SHINee World 5 tour again, the leg I went to. And we know this is why. Jonghyun said in his goodbye broadcast for his radio show that he had to stop because of the tour and that his schedule just wasn't going to work anymore. But I am going to mention it really quickly here in case you wanted to know. Also in April, Key would act in the NBC drama Guardians. It is getting mentioned because Key would go on to win an acting award for this, so hooray for Key! At the end of April, Jonghyun would release his 2nd compilation album, Story Op 2. This would have the lead single, Lonely, which was another duet with Taeyeon. We will get to this song later on because it becomes relevant later. But in promotion of this release, Jonghyun would kick off his latest solo concert. It would consist of 20 shows and run from May to July. Jingi would also release his 2nd SM Station single that May. It would be titled Lullaby and was another duet, this time with the artist Rockoberry. In July, Taemin would host his first solo concert, this one being in Japan, making him the first SHINee member to host a solo concert in Japan. In promotion of the concert, he would release the digital single Flame of Love and then would release his 2nd Japanese mini-album, also called Flame of Love, later that month. Following his Japanese concerts, Taemin would then go on to host a solo concert in Korea as well, this one being titled Off Sick. He would sell about 12,000 tickets for this concert, but would go on to host an encore concert that we will get to. Okay, warning time. We're going to be talking about SA very briefly. There is going to be a timestamp right over here that you can skip to if you do not want to hear me talk about it. I do not judge you. You can totally skip ahead. Do whatever feels best for you. Okay, in August of 2017, Jinki would be accused of sexual harassment by a woman who said that while he was drunk at a club, he was inappropriately touching her while she was dancing on a table. The charges have since been dropped, but Jinki did go on to issue an apology and go on hiatus. You may take all of this information and do with it what you wish. I was not there. I cannot tell you what has happened. All I can say is that the charges have been dropped. I don't know if that is relevant to you. You can do with all this information whatever you feel fit to do. In September, the members other than Jinky would host some encore concerts for their Japanese tour. They would host 2 shows at the Tokyo Dome and 2 shows at the Osaka Dome. With the addition of these 4 shows, the total number of tickets sold for this tour would end up being approximately 540,000, making it by far their largest Japanese tour to date. As previously mentioned, Taemin would host some encore concerts to his Korean show. He would host 2 additional shows and would sell about 20,000 tickets. And conveniently, on the same day, he would release his second full solo album, Move, with a title track of the same name. This song would end up going absolutely viral for its choreography. The music video is even now his most viewed solo music video and has over 65 million views on YouTube on the main music video. In December, Jonghyun would host his 4th solo concert entitled Inspired. He would perform a bunch of different songs that have been released over the years, as well as some of the songs on his upcoming second full solo album. Around the same time, Taemin would release a repackaged version of Move entitled Moving. Personally, I would have called it Move. I think the name is perfect. I cannot believe the opportunity was missed. Whatever, I am not an SM marketing person. The album would, however, be led by the song Day and Night. However, it would not go on to be promoted. Warning round 3, it is Jonghyun time. Timestamp will be right here if you want to skip ahead to avoid any discussions of suicide and depression. You have been warned. Again, I will not judge you for skipping. Do whatever feels best for you. I also, before I continue, do want to make one thing very clear. I use humor in a lot of ways as a coping mechanism. I am not trying to make light of this situation. That is in no way, shape, or form my intention. It is just how I cope with things. It is how I mentally process things. So my script does not include any jokes at all. I cannot guarantee I will stick to that script. So on the off chance that something comes across as a joke, I am not making light of this situation. I want to make that abundantly clear. So Jonghyun would commit suicide on December 18th, 2017. He would end up sending a suicide note to a friend of his. This note has been released since that is what the friend decided Jonghyun would have wanted. If you wish to read the note, I will not be linking it down below. I have full faith in your abilities to find it. I am going to warn you, I did reread it when I was making the script for this video. I consider my mental health to be quasi-stable, like definitely more stable than it could be. It was a lot for me to handle. Do what you wish with this information. If you are not in a good mental state, I would not recommend reading it. It is very, very dark. But his death would be considered a suicide and would result in a lot of discussion on Twitter, especially about the mental health of idols in K-pop. Like, I remember the next several days on Twitter were pretty much a mix of a lot of tweets praising him, a lot of tweets talking about the mental health of idols. And while I will say, I do think it is interesting that nowadays when we talk about idols who have chosen to take their own lives, we associate a lot of it with malicious comments. That was like in zero way a topic of discussion when it came to Jonghyun. It was not even a factor really. Everyone had known his mental health struggles. He talked about it before, and it was very much not even a factor. And I do think it is interesting since this is probably the biggest K-pop moment of the decade even. Like, we can say whatever we want about BTS. I remember I had people in my life who knew nothing about K-pop when this happened, like texting me and talking to me and being like, oh, like, did you know this singer? I remember my aunt actually, like, God bless my aunt, she knows very little about pop culture, let's put it that way. Like, I don't even know if she had a computer at this point. She recently got one, so I don't think she did. But she basically came up to me when she was at my house for like dinner or something, was like, oh, I saw in the newspaper about this K-pop idol. Did you like know him? Were you a fan of him? So like, this was really one of the earliest points we saw mainstream American media talking about K-pop. And while I wish it was for a different reason, I do think that is very interesting. Also, in the aftermath of his death, a lot of Jonghyun's songs would go on to re-enter the charts, with Lonely debuting at #1 on pretty much every single chart there was in Korea, and is also the only male SM song, I hope I got that right, to debut at #1 on the Weekly Melon charts. I'm kind of done talking about this section of the SHINee timeline, but I also don't really want to do my normal retrospective here because it feels a little weird since the only real thing I would have to say is what I just talked about. So instead, I am going to simply say that I will have a bunch of mental health hotlines and resources linked in the description for anyone who feels like you may need them. My Twitter DMs are also fully available. I don't know why you would want to reach out to me, but on the off chance you do, I can guarantee I will answer. I pretty much answer any DM I've ever gotten, unless it's like really weird. Like, please don't send me something that is going to be like horrifying to me. But beyond that, you can always reach out to me. I will do my very best to help you, but that is really all I have to say at this moment. Doing my normal outro also does feel kind of weird, but I will say thank you for watching. Part 3, which is going to cover the rest of SHINee's career, will hopefully be out in the relatively near future, but again, just like with part 1, I film on my phone. The way the storage works, I have to have this part pretty much completely finished before I can even start doing part 3. Hopefully it won't be that long though. You can also comment anything that I missed, comment your thoughts on anything I talked about. You can like and subscribe if that is what you choose to do. I will not be offended. I'm going to be okay whether you choose to subscribe or not. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want to. I will have that linked in the description. I will have part 1 linked in the description. If it is out, I will have part 3 linked in the description, along with a bunch of other SHINee videos and videos that I had previously mentioned I will have down there. So yeah, that is it though. Thank you again for watching. Bye!